Member for Warrandyte.
Thank you, Speaker. To speak on the planning amendment, Better Decisions Made Faster Bill 2025, and I rise first to say that with such a landmark bill and with so much time that has been put into this, with a timeline that's not due for implementation before October 2027, to give the opposition barely any notice to be able to go to stakeholders and to consult on the bill, but also to scrutinise the legislation with such a landmark change, Speaker, is offensive. It's offensive to the parliamentary system. It's offensive to our democracy. To not allow the opposition the time to do their due diligence to actually scrutinise the bill, look at its contents, look at the implications for our communities, go to stakeholders on a week that is reduced because of a public holiday. The insult that it is to Victorians, Speaker, to give the opposition no time, as we represent our communities in this place, over such a landmark change to planning is not only offensive to our democracy but offensive to Victorians. So the time frame for consultation, if I can start with that point, has been terrible. Secondly, local councils and communities in this bill are going to be deprived and cut out of deciding the opportunities for growth in their own communities. For growth in their own communities, next-door neighbours will not be notified of development plans in these reforms. Now, we all want, Speaker, planning systems that are clear, efficient and fair. We all want homes that people can afford, thriving activity centres, infrastructure that keeps pace with growth. But big change requires big trust. This bill does not build trust. It narrows community voice. It weakens parliamentary oversight. It leaves too much to regulations that do not yet exist and risks switching off the very safety checks that protect families from flood, fire, landslip and contamination. It promises speed, Speaker, but delivers uncertainty. It talks about affordability but offers no mechanism to make housing more affordable. It moves money without clear guardrails and asks communities to simply believe that all will be worked out later. Speaker, the government asks us to sign a blank cheque on process, on safety, on accountability, and that is not good enough for my community, and that should not be good enough for this parliament. Just last week, in the midst of trying to consult on these bills, we held in my community a planning forum in conjunction with the Park Orchards Ratepayers Association. Now, this is a great community group. This is a great ratepayers association. They do so much for our community in terms of local advocacy. They run our local market, the Park Orchards Market, that runs every month in our community, and they are there to advocate for the ratepayers and for the residents of Park Orchards. Residents from across Park Orchards, Warrandyte and surrounding suburbs turned out in force to say planning must put people and communities first, not speed, and not the letting go of safeguards. We walked through the state targets applied to Manningham Council and the dwellings that have been dictated to them by the state government. Now, the councils at large have been speaking to us and have told us, Speaker, that they object to this riding over the top of their planning that they have already had. Now, these councils have been looking at the growth of our suburbs, the growth of our local LGAs. They are intimately acquainted with where the growth is, that Doncaster East is very, very different to, say, a place like Wonga Park. Doncaster East is very, very different to a place like Warrandyte. There are different applications. There are different applications for different areas. And so in my community, they have spoken out about the fact that they are the best placed to define where there should be appropriate housing that is true to the area and true to neighbourhood character, true to where there is amenity, true to where there is access to services, true to where there is access to schools, true to where there is the roads to be able to keep pace with growth. And yet, What the state government has done has centralised these powers and instead has acted as the dictator to centralise, as they do with their big government, to tell the community and to tell the council, no, this is where you should grow and this is how many houses you should build and this is what you should be doing. Now, Speaker, that is offensive to these councils who have undertaken works to have a plan of where they should position and where they plan to position housing in our areas, housing in our LGAs in consultation with the community, as is due process. Now, as the planning forum went ahead, it was made clear to us that locals objected to the proposed neighbourhood activity centre at the Park Orchards Village because it is out of sync with neighbourhood character. It is, with talk of a 3 or 4 story forms and fewer VCAT appeal rights for code assessed projects, that it was not acceptable that there was no real consultation that took place, that there was no notice given to the residents, and there were no ironclad safety checks. Now, this entire suburb, we talk about it in my community, it's where the city meets the country in my electorate, that this entire suburb sits in a bushfire-prone area, Speaker, where the evacuation risk is real and residents will not accept a model that weakens hazard scrutiny whilst inviting height creep and lot splits as sewer coverage expands. The message from the room was simple: to restore the voice of the community, to protect the safety of the community, to give them rights to be able to appeal and object to what is going on in their very own suburbs, or in some of the residents' cases, what's happening next door to their very own homes.
Member for Warrandyte, through the chair, please.
Through their very home, Speaker. And so the message from the room was simple: to restore voice, protect safety and be honest about infrastructure before growth. For decades, Parliament has had the power to disallow planning scheme amendments. There's been a vital control to protect against overreach, to ensure transparency and to maintain public confidence. This bill, Speaker, moves that power behind committee process and regulation making. It reduces the ability of the elected chamber to say no. It compresses consultation windows and relocates critical detail into future instruments, some not expected for years. We are being told, trust us, we will sort out the details later, and Speaker, Victorians deserve better than just trust us. Give us controls, give us centralised power, give us the ability to dictate to communities, this is what is meant to happen in the suburb that you live in, this is what your community should look like. There's no right to appeal, there's no right to be able to take it to VCAT, there's no right to even have a voice from the community to speak out against or to be consulted as to what happens in their own neighbourhood, in their own suburb. Where in my community, that is why people buy in Warrandyte. That's why people establish homes, make a family and grow their family in areas like Warrandyte, in areas like Ringwood North, in areas like Park Orchards. People buy for a purpose, and it's a purpose of lifestyle. It's a purpose of the area that they have known to be this low residential code that's been applied to it, where it is meant to be semi-rural. And so to have this application now in semi-rural areas where there is no right to appeal, there's no right to object, to actually just be slapped in the face to say, no, it doesn't matter if you've bought in this suburb, these residents have no ability to appeal or to object or even have a say about what the planning looks like. Local residents do not want a veto on change, but they do expect a fair say, timely notice, Speaker, and basic respect. This bill narrows who must be told when. It shifts more notice online and relies on people to have the time, the technology and the luck to spot the development next door or down the street as it's about to go ahead. It formalises fast tracks that can exclude third-party review even when the impacts are real. In Warrandyte, Park Orchards, Donvale and Templestowe, neighbours help each other every day. They coach our kids, keep our clubs going and step up in disaster. They deserve to be told before bulldozers arrive on their doorstep. They deserve a chance to be heard when a project will change traffic, overshadow homes or strain local services, Speaker. Real reform should make notice simpler and more reliable, not weaker and easier to miss, and it should expand accessible face-to-face engagement rather than hiding change in a web portal. And then that speaks to the issue of what if there are residents that are elderly that aren't able to access these web portals? What about accessibility for them? What about inclusion for them, Speaker? The government that purports to support inclusivity and accessibility, that's not available for many of these elderly residents in my electorate. And that's who I'm standing up fighting for. These residents who have been vocal about their appeals, been vocal about, would you stand up and fight for us? We oppose
Member
this.
for Point Cook.